what I saw was increasingly, particularly from good conservative Catholics, was this idea that by emphasizing outside the church there's no salvation, by emphasizing the fact that yes, a lot of people could potentially go to hell, that this was like an anti-evangelization, that you're going to just turn people away. You're not going to be attracting people to church if you make statements like outside the church there's no salvation, or if you make statements like, no, we can't hope that all will be saved. And in fact, many might not be. I wrote an article for Crisis about a month or two ago where I talk about the fact that a lot might be damned, and we have to acknowledge that. And I got a lot of criticism from people saying that that's somehow anti-evangelization. Like, nobody's going to want to become Catholic if you're just saying you go to hell if you don't become Catholic. And if you look, though, at the history of evangelization in the Catholic Church, you find until the 20th century, all the great evangelists were basically saying you're going to go to hell if you don't become Catholic.
Right.
I mean, that's what they all said. In fact, not only is that what they said, that's the reason they went out and evangelized. So this idea that somehow the kind of traditional emphasis on outside the church there's no salvation is somehow contrary to evangelization, that makes no sense. It's a modern conceit that has been basically invented over the past 50 years, that you have to be, all evangelization has to be very soft evangelization, meaning just be nice, do some good works, and somehow people will magically become Catholic. That's ridiculous. And we see the proof is in the numbers. The fact that missionary activity has completely collapsed over the past 50 years. And of course, conversions have collapsed. And not only that, but tons of people have left the church as well. So I feel pretty confident to say I'm going to stick with how the church did it for 1900 years that worked, rather than embrace the modern methods, which have just categorically have not worked.
Yeah, there seems to be a dogmatization or absolutization of religious sentiment. It's like a psychologizing. You know, if you make anybody feel uncomfortable ever, they're just going to leave, and they'll never accept anything you say. If you make anybody feel uncomfortable at all, but like have any bad emotional experience whatsoever, it'll just push everybody away, because religion is all about making you feel good. And this is something that, Father James Martin emphasizes. That's his gospel. It's his gospel of psychology. It's a false gospel. It's not the real gospel of Jesus Christ, but there's this false gospel of psychology that the whole purpose of the gospel is just to make you feel good. And if anything doesn't feel good, that must be the wrong gospel. That's kind of de facto what they're saying.
The number one thing I found is that these categorical statements that we have to be relevant, or we have to present the gospel in a positive manner, things like that, those are just simply not true as a category. What I mean by that is every individual is different. And so the most important thing about evangelization is your relationships, that you have a relationship with a person and then you bring them to the gospel. It's not just this idea that, okay, and you do that the same way for everybody. Like a great example, in my opinion, is myself and how I was evangelized by Catholics. When I was in college, I was the only Protestant in the pro-life group with a bunch of Catholics, and I had a friend, he also my college roommate, he broke every single rule of the new evangelization with me. He was often obnoxious. He was pushy. He made it very clear. He's like, you need to become Catholic. If I brought anything Protestant, he would immediately say why it was wrong. So all these things we're not supposed to do, he did. And I'm Catholic now because of that. So I thank God that he didn't know what the script was, because he didn't follow it. Now, I will say we were friends. We knew each other very well. He knew he could be aggressive like that with me. Now, perhaps if you walked up to a stranger and tried that method, it might fail. I grant that. But that's the whole point, is like this idea that, okay, all evangelization is, the stupid fake St. Francis quote of preach the gospel always, and when necessary, use words. I mean, that's just stupid, because first of all, St. Francis himself used words all the time. I mean, that's what he did. He went around preaching. I mean, yes, he lived the gospel too, better than probably anybody, but he went around preaching all the time, and he told his brothers, you have to preach. You go. I mean, he sent them out all the time. So all these kind of status quo assumptions that people have about evangelization in the Catholic world, I just think they're all based upon, like you said, some faulty psychology, some faulty assumptions about the human person and about the faith.